on Nova Legends podcast, I have Shenandoah coach Liz Pike, who's one of the greatest athletes in the history of Northern Virginia. When you look at the titles that she has won as a player and coach, and it's funny about Liz. I've known her for a long time. I didn't even know the extent of all she accomplished until I prepared for this interview. Liz, thanks for doing this. Good to see you.
Good to be here, Julian.
After that introduction, I think you're going to have to be nice to me today. Um, so let me give your biography for some of the folks who may not know you so well. You're a 90 Lake Braddock graduate. While at Lake Braddock, you won a state title in basketball and in soccer. Played with Mia Hamm, of course, and lots of other great players. You went to American University where you were a 4-year starter. You're All-American and you're in the American University's Hall of Fame as of 2011, which is awesome. You went back to Lake Braddock and coached basketball and soccer as a soccer coach. And I think I got this right. You won 3 state titles, 2 back-to-back. I know you think you might have won 4. It's a good problem when you've won so many, you lose count. But yeah, you won back-to-back titles. You were the first person to do that for 20 years to win a back-to-back soccer title. And since 2007, you've been at Shenandoah. You have 165 wins there. You've won a USA South tournament, got to the NCAA tournament. You've also coached club soccer as well. Liz, did I get most of that right?
Look at that. Look at you doing your homework.
Yeah.
We're good.
We're good. Okay, good.
We're good.
Well, first of all, you grew up in a generation where there are so many great players that you played with and against. If you look at Mia, who I mentioned, Colette, Laura Teeter, Karen Jenkins. If you look at people like Holly Helmuth, Amanda Cromwell, so many great players in the area. And now as a coach in Shenandoah, who I'm sure has gotten a lot of players from this area, why are there so many amazing athletes that you played against and played with? I mean, I know it's probably, I'm sure the rest of the country's caught up to us over the years. But what do you attribute that to, that you grew up with so many great athletes?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it on the head right there with everybody else has caught up to us. I think back in the day, I mean, it's a long time ago, we were just a hotbed for great athletes. I mean, I can even remember, playing with the Shooting Stars. We would travel to try to find competition, and we didn't have a lot of luck. I mean, there weren't many places, at least for soccer, that we could go and find competitive games. Texas had some and New York, but other than that, it wasn't the case. I mean, I had left the area, moved to California, going into soccer, but soccer wasn't at the same level. At least I didn't think. So that's when I really got into basketball, when I went to California. And then I came back and started to do both. But now as I recruit, I mean, I can go anywhere in this country, and you're going to find high level players. It's crazy. It's great. It's wonderful. So yeah, I was just fortunate that I was in Virginia with great athletes, talented in a lot of different sports, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you knew the competition was high because you had to travel to find competition. But would it have surprised you, like, to know then that all these people were going to do great things, that Mia was going to do what she did, Jill Ellis would be the national team coach, all the Julie Cunningham, what you've done, what Colette did, all your friends. Laura had a great career, George Mason, Holly did great. Would it surprise you at the time that everyone was going to do such great things in the sport?
You forgot even Amanda Cromwell, right?
Yeah, Amanda, obviously, Amanda. Yeah. I mean, would that have surprised you if someone told you that all these people were going to do amazing things?
I mean, I'm not surprised. These were great women. We were competitive because we had our mindset was just different. We didn't take things personally. We wanted to compete. We wanted to win. We weren't always nice in how we conveyed that to each other, but nobody got their feelings hurt. It's just how we got on with it.
Now, were you guys like friends, like all these type A incredible athletes? Everybody wants to win. You're playing for different schools, sometimes you're in the same clubs, the top players, but were you guys friends? Was it a, did you guys butt heads a lot? What was the mood like at that level?
I mean, I think when you're playing against certain teams or athletes that you know are gonna bring it, back then, I wouldn't say the word was friend, um, but I think there was always a mutual respect. I mean, we knew, like, okay, we're about to play, and we knew who the good players were. So I think there's always a mutual respect, but, it's not till you get old and you look back and you're like, and then the friendships come from there.
Mm.
But at the time, no, when we're on the field or on the court, no, you just want to rip their heads off, right?
But after
Yeah.
the game, you guys would be friends?
I don't think at that time it was a friendly relationship.
Right.
You know, we were competitive. We didn't like somebody that, could bring it and possibly beat us. But as you get older, you look back and you have a newfound respect for these women who, ultimately make you better.
Yeah. Are the athletes different today? Are the athletes as hungry as you guys were? Or is it because of, all the social media and maybe the different expectations of parents? Are you getting radically different athletes than you grew up with?
You really want to open that conversation up, Julian. Um, Listen, different. It's just different. And I have these conversations daily. It's just trying to educate myself on what I don't want to use the word dealing with, but I mean, these kids, they've come up in social media. It's a way of life for them. So for me to be like, just, put the phone down, they look at me crazy. So, I don't want to sit in judgment. I think these kids they deal with different things that I never dealt with. So I can't say what's better. I know that these kids are a lot more technical. They're they can do things that I couldn't do on the ball for sure. Do they have that competitive mindset? That I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that. They want to win, but if they don't win, that's okay too. And I didn't live in that world. We didn't win. You know, I was chomping at the bit to play that team again. And I was not in a good place until I could redeem, you know, the success we needed there. So no, I don't know.
How have the parents evolved? I mean, there were some tough parents back when we played as well, but probably not as tough to the female athletes as they were the male athletes. But now, I mean, parents are really, really tough, and they have high expectations of their kids and also of the coaches. Have you seen a lot of evolution in the way parents handle their athletes?
I mean, yeah, there's been a little shift. We can see that just in society as a whole, right? And I don't know what that's attributed to. Maybe it's the pay to play system.
Mm.
If you're shelling out a whole lot of money for your kid to be out there, maybe there's a sense of, you get a voice and you get to speak to it. I don't know. I mean, I can only say I am very happy I grew up when I did. I came from a single parent household and my mom had to work. I had to figure out how to get to practice. If my mom showed up to a game, that was great. But, she had other things to do. She had other children. She had to work and support the family. So it wasn't about her.
Mhm. Yeah.
She was always our biggest fans and was like, get out there. But now I see parents camping out at practice fields. They're sitting there, it's a lot. But
Yeah.
yeah, again, it's hard. It's easy to judge. I try not to sit in judgment. I think it's just a different time, Julian. I don't want to say one's better, one's worse. You know, I I still have to recruit these kids, so I have to kind of toe the line there. It's just different. It's very different.
Does a Division III soccer coach have to deal with parents on a regular basis?
On a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
do parents call, will they call you up or they'll complain, or do you have to deal with parents, or do the kids do that instead of the parents at that stage?
Look, you're always going to have that one or two parents that try to involve themselves. I think we're still in a good place. I think parents want to support their children. I think there's a lot of teaching moments where they can teach their children to have the tough conversations, which a lot of these kids just struggle to do. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a Division I, II, or III thing. I think it's, unfortunately, you're going to find that parent who they know best. They think they have a voice. And yeah, I mean, it happens everywhere. I have colleagues in all divisions. Yeah, you're shocked when you hear it because it isn't the norm,
Yeah.
but it does happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, those expectations are high at Division III. I interviewed your good friend Colette, and when she
Right.
played at Marymount, there wasn't a lot of competition there. She would score pretty easily. Nowadays, I interview a lot of Division III women's coaches, and I love watching the games. They're very competitive now.
Yeah.
So the Division III has really gone up in quality. Have you noticed that, and have you enjoyed that?
It has been exciting. There, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? I got into Division III. There was a lot of balance when I first came, as far as it wasn't all soccer all the time. So a lot of the you'd have your downtime. We've definitely morphed into the way of Division I. I come from Division I. I didn't know a lot about Division III until I got here, and I certainly did not hear of a lot of the schools that I now am very familiar with. But yeah, you see a lot of Division III, maybe not a lot, but there are a number of Division III schools that will beat your mid-major D1s. I think on the women's side, you have these women who get it, right? They're like, I'm not going pro. I'm not going pro. You have my program of study. I want to have a great experience, and I want to play. And I don't want it to just take over my life. I do want some balance, although it is changing, where there's a lot more demands at D3 than there used to be. But with that said, yeah, the competition level's insane. We're playing a number of D3 schools where I'm like, these players are Division I caliber players. But I think for the reasons I gave you, they're opting for smaller schools, a different experience. And so, yeah, it's been fun just to see the level of competition. Um, yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a little bit about your single mom, and you also mentioned you moved around a little bit. Who were some of your first sports role models?
Sports role models. A lot of them dwelled in the tennis world.
Wow.
Martina, right? Everett, like those. I don't know. I was really big into, and I think it just goes back. That's what we saw when we were younger, right? Soccer wasn't a thing. There were no soccer role models in terms of to that level. I grew up with them, right? The role models that these little girls first, the Mia Hams and, the Julie Foudies, those type players, that was my era. So I didn't have that to look at, right? So for me, what was I watching on TV? Where was women's sports back then? It wasn't basketball.
Mm-mm.
You weren't seeing that on TV, but you were seeing tennis. And so those were the women. And so I thought they were powerful women and I enjoyed watching them. And then it just got me involved in all sports. I played tennis, I ran track, I loved basketball. I wasn't great at basketball. I thought I was back then, but I was not very good at basketball.
Mhm.
Um, Soccer, of course. Yeah. So
So,
anything I could do, I did.
Yeah. So what was the first serious coaching that you got in soccer?
So I lived in Alexandria when I was younger, and we were moving out to Burke, and I had been on like rec teams, and so club had just started, and I had a lot of coaches like calling and wanting me to come join their club. And my mom, first of all, there, cost money. There's going to be travel associated with that. So we kept putting it off. I'm moving to Burke, and I tried out for the Braddock Road Shooting Stars. That was the team with, Kelly Pulisic and Colette Cunningham and Karen Jenkins, and just, some of my teammates will kill me if they see this and I don't name them, but the whole team was stacked. And yeah, that was my first experience with girls who wanted to compete at a different level. And so, yeah, it was great. That was my first experience, like being surrounded by other girls who had the same desire and drive.
Who was the
Yeah.
coach? Who,
Denise Michelot.
oh, okay. Yeah, of course.
Yep. So and back then, different, like Denise just stayed with us. So the culture of our team, these women are still, my best friends today. There was no hopping from one club to another. You were very loyal to your club. And we had players who would get, as we got older, maybe they weren't the same player that they were when they were 10, and they would get, I don't know, what's the word, cut from the team, but you would never go to another team. They're still considered, they were Braddock Road Shooting Stars, even though they didn't play with us as we moved on into high school. So today, when players go from one club to another club to another club, yeah, that was not done back in our day.
But obviously, the club system now is much more advanced, and it's probably does a better job of identifying and training great players. Would you say, or it's just a matter of there's more athletes that are playing soccer and more coaches with experience with soccer?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that, Julian. I don't have an answer for that. I don't know if I think there's great coaches out there, so I think these girls are getting much better training for sure. I do think there's a lot more athletes, so that plays into it. But I don't know. You asked me earlier, are these kids today better? And I said to you, they're obviously a lot more technical, but the mindset, that competitiveness, because maybe they play so much, it's like, okay, there's a game tomorrow. Like we looked forward to when we played. We were cutthroat. We were out there to win. And I think if you took our generation, just out of the desire that we're not going to lose, we might beat the talent that's out there today.
Yeah.
Talent isn't always enough, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, obviously, you were a very successful two-sport athlete. Are most of the players on your team, did they play two sports in high school or before? Or most of the players that play for Shenandoah, are they specialists in soccer?
Yeah, I mean, you're long gone are the multi-sport athletes, right? That's not the norm anymore. So, yeah, I have a few that were multi-sport athletes, but the majority they specialize in their sport. I don't know if we're going to circle back to that or not, where these kids are like going to play multiple sports, but the demands don't allow them to do that anymore, right?
Yeah. So what you think about Lake Braddock when you first got there? So I used to live on Ashburn Drive before we moved to the Robinson area. And Lake Braddock was a vibrant place. They were great in all sports, track and field. They were great in basketball, girls and boys. They had some good football teams at times. Um, yeah, I mentioned track and field. Anyway, it was probably a pretty exciting place to go to school. So what were your thoughts about going to Lake Braddock?
Right. loved it. Bruin for life, right?
Yeah.
Great athletes. Our swim team, we had an Olympian on the swim team, track team with Alan Johnson, Hubert Davis, coaching at North Carolina right now. I mean, we could go on and on with the number of athletes that came out of Lake Braddock. Just a huge school. A lot of great rivals in the area, right? Robinson, whatever. That was for you, Julian. I mean, just great. It was a great area, with all the Woodson, West Springfield, Annandale at that time was really strong. Obviously, yeah, I said Robinson. I mean, just the amount of kids in the area. So we wind up getting to know everybody, and where all the top kids are. But yeah, Lake Braddock was a great place. It was a great place to help foster kids in sports. We had great coaches.
Yeah. Had it changed much 20 years later when you were coaching there? Had Lake Braddock changed?
When I was there, what do you mean with the great coaches?
Well, no, just how yeah. Well, the coaching was so great, but just how the school, the demographic, the social life, had the school changed much when you came back and coached there?
Um, no, I mean, I felt it was still, producing great athletes. At least when I was there coaching, I might have got there, at the right time, because I was super fortunate. I had like Kristen Bowers. She was on the national pool. I mean, I, I had so many athletes, and when you get old, your memories like. So I'm not going to start naming them all, but I was so fortunate. I had great parents. The community of Lake Braddock was great. I just lucked out. I got there at a great time. I think my coaching style probably didn't allow for anybody to come out for the team that wasn't fully understanding what that expectation was going to look like.
Mhm.
So I think it was a little combination of both, but yeah, I mean, I had great players, so it made it easy.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to Lake Braddock when you were playing and playing basketball. Now, you played with some great basketball players. Matter of fact, you won a state uh, tournament the year after you graduated. Some really good players. So you were just loaded. You mentioned earlier you weren't that great in basketball, but yet you were on the varsity team, I believe, as a sophomore. So and it was a really good team. So how were you able to get up to speed in basketball and play at that level if you didn't have this background?
I mean, look, I was an athlete. I was going to try to run faster. I was physical. I think because I was, I'm 5'10". Back then that's a good size. So, um, look, I was a defensive player. I could play some good defense, but yeah,
Mm.
don't let me shoot the ball.
What was Coach Trowbridge like? She's
She was great. She was a
yeah.
great mentor to all of the women. I mean, again, she had some great players in her system for a number of years, and she was able to cultivate that and create a great culture to thrive in. I had just moved back from California, and I came into these women who or girls. I have women now, but these girls who, again, with the Laura Teeters and the Karen Jenkins and Kate Powell and oh God, see, I'm gonna forget everybody, but they wanted to compete and they were great players. And I just got to, I was a role player and I understood that. And I think that's the biggest thing today is everybody wants to be the it player. Um, but there are roles. I filled a role. I was gonna run in and more than likely fell out of most games.
Well, I mean, Liz, we played pickup basketball together, and you shot the ball. You shot the ball a lot. So
Yeah.
your role obviously had changed like 10
That's
years
funny.
10 years
That's
later.
funny.
But are the things that Coach Trowbridge did that you still think about today, or did she have a long term effect on the way you coach?
Um, you know, just because I'm on the soccer end of things, and basketball for me was a pleasure sport. I loved it. It was fun for me. I just was a gym rat. I was the epitome of a tomboy, coming up through high school. So for me, you know, I would watch her, you know, and she just coached us. And I think the relationship of coach player has certainly changed over the years, right? And what I mean by that was back then I saw Coach Trowbridge at practice. She was putting in systems of play and she was coaching us. And then we left practice and I'd see her again at practice. Where today I'm seeing the coach player relationship off the off the courts, off the
They
field.
text each other, and
There's yeah, it's a lot. And so on any given day, so I was just in the office and I had to tell three of my players to leave. As I'm walking in the office, I'll have three of my players sitting outside the office and I'm like, what's up? And they're like, nothing. We're just so they want these relationships now. Um, so to be fair, I never wanted those from my coaches. I was like, I will see you at practice.
yeah.
But today's time has changed. Yeah, you're getting texts from coaches. Players want that relationship outside of the playing surface. So it's a little different.
Yeah. Well, you guys had two, I would say, magical runs at state tournament, except for one of them you lost to Annandale. Annandale made a lot of foul shots, and it was Amanda and Anne Marie Kennedy, in particular, Asia Berkeley as well. But a very nice Annandale team was able to beat you in the state final. But that was great to get to the state final. The next year, you guys are undefeated. You go all the way to the state championship. You play, I believe, Phoebus in the final, and you were involved in one of the key plays that won the game. Tell us a little bit about what that tournament run meant to you. I love high school tournament runs. Like my son had one in soccer. I think about it all the time when they go to the state final. They actually lost, but I love the movie Hoosiers. I followed high school basketball for many, many, many years. What did those tournament runs mean to you? Do you think about those from time to time?
Oh gosh. I mean, high school is like no other, right? You're part of this community. Um, you get the press and the paper. Like, and so yeah, we were 30-0. We were the team to watch. I think at that time, Laura was Gatorade Player of the Year with Grant Hill.
That's
I mean, there's
awesome.
just a lot of fond memories. And of course, yes, you think I'm gonna forget hitting the free throw with under a minute to tie the game up? I probably was 0 for 40 in free throws before that. So yeah, I mean, high schools, you know, I always encourage these athletes to play high school. And I don't know what that's going to look like 10 years from now. You know, I don't know what the high school sports, you know, I see sports like not as popular. I see a lot of clubs asking their players not to play high school. If you look at the women's national team for soccer, which is ironic, they all played high school.
Hmm.
They all played high school. Yet the higher level clubs now are telling their players not to play high school.
Yeah.
But to your point, our fondest memories are are during those years, right? They're very influential.
Yeah.
So yeah, I look back a lot at not only what I did in high school, right? In terms of the soccer and the basketball, but even other high schools in the area, and how they were. I think back then, right? Wasn't it like Robert E. Lee?
Yeah.
Wasn't that like Bill Courtney's group over there?
That was in
I don't think he
'88.
had down at
That,
Miami, but
yeah.
those were the years.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you just had great sports in that area. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that was also Grant Hill and those guys at South Lakes that were so dominant. I want to get back to Lay Braddock, but real quickly, do most of your athletes at Shenandoah, do they play high school soccer as well? So on the Division III level, most of your players are going to play high school soccer, or is it a mix?
No, most of them play.
Most of them play high school soccer.
Played, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a player now. She came in, she was out of Virginia, and she won her state championship her senior year.
Mhm.
She came in here for us that fall and she crushed it. It was great. But she was coming off the back of a state championship, to your point, and what a great memory for her. She has great excitement about that. So I love hearing that, and I like hearing, some of them are like, yeah, my high school team's not very good. I'm like, that's okay.
Mm.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You're playing in your community.
Yeah.
Go have fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to get back to basketball again, I've heard a lot. I never saw Laura Teeter play, but I've heard a lot about her on the basketball
Yeah.
side and also soccer. What made her such a special athlete, Laura?
Well, I mean, she stopped playing soccer.
Oh, she did. Okay.
And then, yeah, and she then focused in on basketball. She was just strong down below. She was going to box you out. She just, again, I think we come from a different mentality back then, right? I mean, women's sports was like just taking off, and we wanted to let people know, we've arrived, here we are. And there's a lot, getting the respect from our guy friends. When our guy friends were like, hey, I'm going to play pickup. Do you want to come? That's a lot of respect.
Yeah.
And so I think, people were realizing back then, Laura Tita was just a fierce competitor. And I say this all the time, right? That mental attitude, that competitiveness, that's going to beat out talent 9 out of 10 times. And I feel strongly about that. And so I was coming up with those kind of girls.
Yeah.
If you didn't show up, they were going to let you know.
Yeah.
They were going to let you know. I mean, I remember I was a forward, a cherry picking forward. I led on the soccer field, like, kick the ball up here and let me run and go score. And I wasn't going to run back and play any defense. That was just not what I wanted to do. But I had Kelly Harlow, now Kelly Pulisic, who everybody knows her son, right? I remember a game and I didn't score, but she scored. She had hit a banger from out back, but I remember right after the game, her letting me know, if I have to do your job and play defense, we're going to have issues. But that's how we talk to each other. I didn't walk away in my feelings. I walked away like, damn.
Yeah.
She just let me know, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have a job to do. My job was to score goals. Her job was nobody was going to score on her. And then she went on to Mason and had an unbelievable career there. But those were the women, who we let each other know. We held each other accountable, but our feelings didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
At least I don't remember them getting hurt.
Well, another hard-nosed athlete you play with is Colette Cunningham, and basketball and soccer. Now, you guys were, I believe, very close friends then, and you're close friends today. What was your relationship like then? Is it been the same all these years?
She bullied me back then, and she bullies me today. That's kind of and I just take it. Yeah.
Wow.
No, Colette just, and everybody knows Colette. Colette's funny, great personality. Again, she falls right in, fierce competitor. She's gone on to be, a true professional in her career path, and now does extremely well in her business. It's been great to be alongside her all these years. And it's just powerful for me to sit back to your point earlier and see these women who were in my community, who came up in the community that I either played with or against, to see how amazing they are.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to see that and to watch them do right. Amanda won at UCLA, and I mean it's just it's great. Julie Cunningham was took Princeton to the Final Four. I mean, just over the years watching the accomplishments of these, I don't know, like just these badass women.
Yeah.
And to be a part of that in any capacity, for me, it's humbling. It's really, really cool.
Did you know Mia Hamm pretty well at Lake Braddock?
Julian,
She's old. Wasn't she older? She wasn't older than you?
we were teammates. We were the same.
I didn't know.
What do you
Okay.
mean did I know her very well?
Okay, we'll talk. Okay, I get confused. We'll talk about your relationship with Mia and what you thought about her.
Yeah, I mean, Mia, true to who she is today, right? Mia didn't like the limelight. Mia was she was very humble back then. She just got on with it. Mia taught me a lot. Mia would be the first one as I was getting to practice. She was there. And I'd see her like, we'd kind of mosey up to practice, just chit chat. And she'd be the one already getting a warm up in, working on the ball. We'd all be like, look at her. What's she doing? Right. And then we'd all take off after practice and she'd be up there doing sprint work. Like, so when you look now at who she became, she was putting those things in place. We didn't understand it back then, right? We were just like, what's wrong with her? But right now you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that makes sense. And the guys' team would ask her to jump in and she'd practice. So if we ended early, she would go jump in and practice with the guys' team.
Wow.
Who also the year we won states, they won states.
That's crazy.
So they were loaded. That was the KP Wozniak, Craig Brennan, that whole crew. So we won the men and women. We both won the state championship that same year. But Mia was great. I took Mia to a club in DC with me one time. That's a funny story, but that's as much as I'm going to say on that.
Yeah, well, for all your exploits in coaching and playing, also one of the best dancers in the club 25 years ago. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you can still do that
I
today.
don't have those moves anymore, Julian.
Oh, you used to have. You used to be able to command.
Hey.
Now, so one of your teammates, Emily Rice, I believe her mother, Caroline Rice, was your coach at Lake Braddock. Is that correct? So what was she like as a coach? What would you learn from her?
Carolyn was great because Carolyn, she also was on the club scene as well. So she coached. Emily was older than I think I had 1 year playing with Emily. Emily was 1 or 2 years. She was, I think, 2 years older than I was. Again, basketball, soccer, fierce competitor. Her mom was another great role model for me, obviously. And it's funny because you don't have a lot of female coaches in the game on a whole.
You mean then or
Right.
now? You mean then or now?
Then and now.
Then and now. Huh?
It just, you don't see it. If I go to a showcase and there's 300 teams out there, maybe 10 of them are coached by females, if that. You just don't see it. And so how fortunate was I? I had 2 female coaches, and Denise Michelot and Carolyn Rice, and then again basketball side with Coach Melissa Trowbridge. So I just lucked out. I had female coaches. I had amazing female athletes around me. Carolyn Rice was no different. Again, she was both on the club side as well as the high school. She was also my French teacher.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I don't know how good I was in in French, but she passed me.
Yeah,
Thank goodness. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so, but she was great. She instilled expectations. She she taught us what it was to work hard and to compete, and she wanted the best out of all of her players. And I think she got that, obviously, but I think she was a fair coach, and she gave everybody an opportunity. And I think that's my takeaway from her. Just be fair. And I think she was always that.
Yeah. Well, you end up going to American. Hey, are there any other teammates that you must talk about or you'll be in trouble, or can we go on to American now?
Let's go ahead. We can move on.
Okay. I don't want to get you in too much trouble. So you end up going to American, and what was that thought process? I don't know the college soccer scene at that time, so I wouldn't know what the choices that you had, or why you chose American. But why'd you choose American?
Right. And this is a funny conversation because I have it with my mom, I have it with my teammates, because it was, I don't even know if my facts are completely right, but this is how I see it back then. Back then, there were a few schools that were dominant, and you're coming into where a lot of these colleges had just recently moved into NCAA collegiate play.
Mhm.
It was kind of that whole Title IX was coming into play. So a lot of these colleges were moving these women's teams from club into, NCAA play. And those that had been there for a few years, still relatively young, right? So when I went there, that was the first year that they had women's soccer.
Hmm.
Um, when I was looking at schools, my whole team, we were all being pushed to, at that time, the Power Fives. We were a really high level club team, nationally recognized. So at that time, right, it was like NC State, North Carolina, UMass, UConn, Mason was
Mhm.
in that at that time. So those were kind of the schools. Like you got to go to one of these programs. Um, Again, just I came from a single mom who worked in Washington D.C. and I was like, I wanted her to be a part of my, you know, I guess my story at American. I looked at Georgetown, American, GW. It came down to those three out of DC. GW at that time, the campus wasn't to my liking,
Mhm.
and Georgetown was starting up as well. Um, I don't know why I didn't choose Georgetown, but I wound up going to American. I went to American because Michael Brady and Pete Mailer, who are very well known throughout the club scene and just in the soccer community. I mean, they put a lot of time into me. They showed up at my high school games. They came over to my house. I think they got my mom on their side. And so I wanted to be in a city. And so, yeah, I chose American and it was a great fit for me. I had a great playing career there. We played all the top schools back then. We played UVA, we tied them
Wow.
1-1. Um,
We won't talk about that.
we won't talk about that. Yeah, that won't ever happen again, will it? We played North Carolina. We got beat badly, just like everybody else did. So yeah, I mean, we had great games. I had a great career there. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I would think it'd be a great place to be an athlete at American. It's a beautiful little campus. It's in a great part of town. You probably knew the basketball players. It's probably a really tight knit sports community, but probably tight knit community in general at American.
I mean, it was great. It was great. You knew all the athletes. There was a lot of support there. for sure. And then for me, let's go back to the 1990s in Washington, D.C. I mean, outside of sports, Julian, it was a
Yeah.
great place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I
The
heard.
dance moves, the
Yeah.
dance moves were on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
I,
on.
yeah, I heard about that. I didn't.
Georgetown was very different.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a happening place. So I
Yeah.
was very happy with my decision.
Where did
Yeah.
you where'd your sister end up? Where'd your sister
What's
end up?
that?
Was your sister? Where'd your sister end up going to school?
Oh, we're not talking about the club scene anymore. Okay.
Okay,
My sister wound up coming to American as well.
that's what I
And
thought.
I played 1 year with her, and she loves to tell the story when we used to go play other teams. Um, yeah, I mean, people knew who I was on the field, and I said whatever I said. I was definitely I'm gonna go down as the best female trash talker. I want to own that. If there's
Yeah.
an award, I want to find out where those other women are that talked more trash than I did. I think Kelly Pulisic would give me a run for my money.
Yeah.
But I was a trash talker. And anyway, I remember one game, the other team goes up to my sister, not knowing, I guess she was my sister. I was like, oh my God, how do you play with her? Like, how do you play with this girl? And my sister said something like, I know. And I lived with her my whole life. It was kind of our running joke. It's pretty
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Um, so well anyway, when did you start thinking about becoming a coach? Did it occur to you when you were playing at American that one day you'd coach, or is that just something that kind of came a little bit later?
So no, so I graduated I from American. I went off doing, I was doing social work for about 10 years.
Mhm.
I was working with incarcerated youth. I was doing homebound counseling, and I was doing that for a long time. And that was pretty tough. And while I was doing that, I was on the club side, right? So I was just dabbling. Coaches who knew me would ask me to come out and run practice sessions. So I was doing that with different clubs, as a 22, 23, 4-year-old, they were giving me, here's 100, run the session. So I was just going around running kind of practice sessions. And then I was coaching the JV basketball at Lake Braddock.
Hmm.
And that was just for fun. So I never really put a lot into it other than that I just enjoyed it. Um, there was a there was a mom, the last name was Beto, and I had coached her daughter in basketball. And she said, the job is going to open up at Lake Braddock for soccer. You should go take that job. And I was like, no, it was really a very much a no. I was just in my time. I wanted to enjoy myself. Last thing I wanted to do was actually be coaching. And she kept talking, just go coach, go for it, go for it. Um, after after some convincing, I went and interviewed for the job, and it was probably the best decision ever. I met amazing families. I was back in the community that I loved to be in. I was coaching a sport that was a huge passion of mine my entire life. And that first year we went to the state championship. So, and Lake Braddock hadn't gotten out of regionals for
Hmm.
over 10 years prior. So that might not be a fact, but
Was that your first experience as a head coach? Like, because you said you were training, doing
yeah,
some sessions. That was your
yeah.
first. Did you know? Were you thoughtful about what type of head coach you were going to be? I mean, you'd had all these great role models and coaches, but so when you became a head coach, did you know exactly the kind of coach you wanted to be, or that's something that kind of evolved? I mean, you won right away, so maybe maybe it just came kind of natural to you.
When I went in and they announced that I was the head coach. This is a true story. When they announced that I was the head coach, I want to say 6 of the seniors coming in quit immediately. Um, my reputation, as I told you, I was training a lot of the clubs. So people knew who I was. And my training sessions were difficult. They were what I went through under Carolyn Rice, Denise Michelot. I came under players I had with their expectations. So I always came up with, you better be fit. You better be able to go for 90 minutes, right?
Mhm.
And go hard for 90 minutes. So I know that was always a philosophy of mine that was, and still is, like, control the controllable. You better come in fit, and I'm going to find out. And if you're not fit, it's probably not going to be a great day for the team as a collective, right? So when I did get the position, people knew she's going to come in, she's going to have these expectations, they're going to be tough. I think I've stayed with that. I think there's been, at least I'd like to think, there's been some growth in my coaching. Obviously, I coach a different type of player today. So how I coached back then would never fly today. I couldn't. I could not be the coach I was back then when I had a lot of success, but it was a different type of kid as today. So I don't know if I answered that other
Yeah,
than
yeah,
my coaching has, you know, it should, all coaches, you've got to evolve. You've got to change, right? You
yeah,
can look at the very best, right? Look at Coach K at Duke.
yeah.
Did he really want to get out, or did he see, okay, the way I like to coach and the years of the 4-year player are gone.
Yeah.
These guys are one and dones. Is that his coaching style? I mean, who knows? But as you coach, you got to recognize, you know, we're coaching different kind of kids, different styles. They, you know, they hear things differently. Maybe you got to be a little more gentler. Maybe, I don't know. So yeah.
Do you enjoy the challenge of high school coaching? In high school, you may have not as much technical ability on your team as you would on the club, where a team may have been together for a few years. So you might have to move kids. You might have a kid who plays right back for in club. You might be your center back. You might be your midfielder. You may have a center back who's a striker at the high school. Do you like the high school challenge in that you take your players and you have to just kind of move them around to where they fit? Is that fun for you?
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of that community and what high school sports is all about. So, you know, and I tell the college players, you know, as in the recruiting process, you know, I think there's this false understanding as you are being recruited, right? That it's going to be like that. So what I mean by that is my club team, we were together forever, and it was the same players, and my friendships and that tight knit group I had, that was nothing like than my high school. My high school was players that maybe wouldn't have made my club team, but they were part of my high school community. Maybe they weren't as good, but they were good enough to be on the high school team, and different adjustments had to be made, right? And at the high school, seniors left, new players came in. So every year brought on different challenges and maybe different styles of play. So it was different. And you had to adjust to both styles. I think both have a positive aspect to it, right?
Yeah.
So then you get recruited and you're going into the high school, I mean, to the college game. The college game, I would compare more to the high school, right? You're adjusting to some different players every year. You're losing players to graduation. So now the team dynamic changes a little bit, right?
Mhm.
But you also have these college kids that are moving into their programs of study, their career paths. So they've got a lot of other things going on as well. And so the culture of the college teams will never be like your club team. They would never be like your high school team. And so when I look at the transfer portal, and I talk to kids in the transfer portal, a lot of times I get, well, it wasn't it wasn't a great environment. It wasn't, that's what I hear. And I'm kind of like, well, did you go in with that expectation? Because if you weren't told up front not to expect what you had with club or your high school community, then you're coming in, it's immediately you're going to fail. You're going to be unhappy because it's not the same. And I'm seeing a lot of athletes not really understand that concept.
Yeah. Well, as a high school coach at Lake Braddock, so when you were a player, lots of the state didn't really play soccer yet. So winning the state is great, but basically the Northern Virginia champ was going to generally be the state champion in the early days. Nowadays, there are 6 classifications, so it's so much easier to win a state championship. You won it where everyone was playing soccer around the state, and there was only 3 state champions. It was
Yeah.
truly hard to win a state championship, and you won 3 of them. You must have
Yeah.
had some very special teams. You must have done a great job with them. Talk about some of the players that you had. I mean, I wasn't really in the scene, but you must have had some just fantastic players on your team as well.
I lucked out, but it wasn't even so much, well, of course it was the players, but it was the support. I had the family base, talking about parents. The parents were, I never had any issues. I mean, when I hear people saying today they have problems with parents, like, again, I get it, but again, I was lucky. My parents, they were so great. I have some really, really good relationships with those parents to this day. And when I say good, like I go over there for Christmas, Thanksgiving. I've been part of my former play, all their, they now all have children. It has been probably, and that's why I said to you, it was a game changer for me to take that position based on the relationships that I have to this day with those girls. I mean, I had the Christine Constantinos. She went to Princeton. She played for Julie Cunningham when they went to the Final Four. I had the Bowers, I call them the Bowers clan. That was Lauren, Lindsay, and Kristen. All 3 of those were phenomenal players. I had LJ, Lauren Jane Williams. She went to George Mason and played. As I continued on, I had Kat Weiler. She wound up going to Pittsburgh, and that whole family. I mean, that family came out. I mean, all those kids. They had, Nick, Matt, and Kat, and the 2 boys played soccer as well. One went on to be a kicker at UNC. The other one played at Kentucky and UVA.
Did you say Weiler?
Yeah,
Oh, I used to work for Chris.
there you go.
Yeah.
So unbelievable. So then, unbelievable family. Those were the kind of families. I had Caitlin Ward and her. I mean, I see when you start making me say names,
I know.
I
You're
could
gonna.
go on and on because
Yeah.
I was surrounded by unbelievable families and unbelievable players. And I mean, Katie Dye, I mean, my goodness, these girls are gonna call me like, you didn't name me, but it's unbelievable. And I see them with their families today. And there's nothing better, and any coach will attest to this, when we link up with former players and just see how much success they're having in their lives and their beautiful families. And when every blue moon I get a call or one of them telling me the importance I had in their life, it keeps you going, right? As a coach,
Yeah.
it makes you, this is why I do what I do. That just made my day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were lucky to have you. So was it difficult decision to leave Lake Braddock?
Um, It was because there were a few players and families that I was very attached to, um, who were like, you can't leave yet. Just wait till and I know how that goes. It's wait till I graduate. Well, then there's going to be 4 more, but wait till I graduate. And then you wind up never leaving, right?
Mhm.
Or like, oh, I want to stay. Um, and funny enough, I don't even know if the year I left, and the following year was the big controversy where they suspended Lake Braddock girls soccer. I guess there was a big something happened within the
Wow.
program.
Mm,
Yeah. And so they got suspended. And I'm
Jeez.
like, if I was there, would that have happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. There was
Wow.
a big party. They got caught and they
Mm,
suspended the program.
that's crazy.
It was crazy,
Yeah.
but I don't know. So maybe it was a blessing in disguise. I got out at the right time.
So you come to Shenandoah. It's in the beautiful town of Winchester. First of all, what you think about Winchester? Do you? I love it there. It's kind of far for folks like us. Actually, I'm close to you now in Lansdowne. But was it an adjustment moving out into the country?
Um, I think it was all about timing for me. It was the right time. So had I moved out here just 5 years prior or 2 years, I might have not lasted here. I think it was for me in my life at that time, it was a great decision. Um, it was a little slow out here, not as built up as it is today. Um, but there was a purpose for me when I came here, and I felt that. I felt there was a reason. I had never heard of Shenandoah University
Mm,
prior to coming out here. That I had, somebody said the position's open, you should go look at it. I was like, what's Division 3? What's Shenandoah University? I was pretty naive, to be honest with you. But again, this was a life changer as well. And where I sit today, I know that I've been, you know, there's a higher power, and I've been put in these positions to bring some great things and people into my life, and this was no different. I came to Shenandoah. When I walked in, there were 7 women in the program. I couldn't even feel the team. I was like, this is not okay. But people who know me know, one, I love a challenge, and I love to be told I can't do something. That's all I need. And within 4 years, we wound up winning the conference championship, beating the mighty Christopher Newport
mm.
captains, who I was told you'll never beat them. And we did beat them. I didn't have the best athletes, but I had a group of women who bought into the vision and believed it, and were gritty and tough and won it. So it was exciting. We then left that conference and moved into the ODAC, the Old Dominion Athletic Conference. Randolph-Macon, Washington and Lee, Lynchburg, Virginia Wesleyan, a new group of teams that are highly competitive. Lynchburg won the national championship a few years back. Virginia Wesleyan's been to the Final Four now, last year, the year before. Washington and Lee is a nationally ranked program. So we're amongst some really powerhouse programs. We're in the mix. So I'm just looking for those players who are going to win the championship for me. And I get out there and grind and try to find them.
Yeah. Well,
But
it's such a
yeah,
great culture. Some of those schools have been together for a long time, and just so many
yeah.
great rivalries. I would think one of the biggest adjustments that you had was to recruit. In high school, you don't recruit as much. Maybe you did a little bit on the club scene. Was that an adjustment? Learn how to ask kids to come to your school and in that process?
I mean, recruiting is never easy. right? As coaches know at the we're like we're selling our soul to these. So like we're doing everything to get players to come in and buy into what we're doing, and they have choices, and they have lots of choices. And so, you got to throw out a big net and just try to build relationships with these families and players and hope that they, you know, like what you have to say and the area and the school and everything that comes with it. The recruiting was an adjustment because I was coming from a high school program that had national team caliber players. I wasn't getting those players at Shenandoah University, but
Yeah.
those were the players I wanted, right? So we don't always get what we want, but I wound up again recruiting women that again, came in front of me and bought in, and I'm the godmother to one of my to her children. I've been to more weddings than I care to name, but it's been a great experience. And yes, the recruiting it doesn't get easier. I can just say that. We're out every weekend, you're on the road. It's just part of the game.
Yeah. Do you have very strong tactical beliefs, Liz, or when you coach, do you just get the best players that you can recruit and just try to find a system that fits your personnel?
Um, Listen, I'm always going to shoot my shot, right? So when you're talking about those highly technical players, with that is going to come a lot of options for them. Um, I think we're going into a time where now I'm not only looking for just a strong athlete who, you know, has a strong foundation technically, but is also very athletic. But the mental toughness component is a huge play now as well. And so in my recruiting, I'm also trying to dive into that in terms of, when things don't go your way, how do you react to that? How do
Yeah.
you adjust to that? So that's playing just as much an important role as their playing ability today.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you still get now, Liz, you've been coaching for almost what, 24, 25 years or even more when you talk about do you still love the game as much as ever? I mean, we coach for different reasons. Do I love basketball? Uh, I I like it a lot, but I like the competition. I like the relationships. It's not so much as basketball. It could be almost any sport. I can get in almost any sport. I love soccer now. But as a coach, are you passionate about soccer or what drives you to continue to coach?
I think it's just kind of similar to what I've just been talking about this whole time, which is
Mhm.
these relationships that
Yeah.
you wind up having for the rest of your life. I think that's why most coaches, right, stay in it. I say at the end of the day, Julian, last year, who won the Division III women's national championship?
They're out of
You might
LA.
know.
They're out of LA. Frank Marino's
Okay.
Frank
Okay,
Marino's a coach.
Julian.
No, I want to get this. I want to get this. I interviewed him. Oh, geez, not Poly. It's a school in Santa Barbara. I can't
Is
think of
it Cal Lutheran?
Cal Lutheran. Yeah.
Okay. Listen, who won the Division II national championship?
I don't know.
2 years ago, who won the Division I? There's a reason I'm asking, because as coaches, we can get very caught up in our, oh my, Julian, do you know, if you didn't look, are you following Shenandoah University? If I win a game, I'm happy. If I lose a game, I'm distraught. But you know who really cares? Nobody. Nobody knows except the players who play, myself, and maybe my husband now, who has to live with me. But the point I'm trying to make is, if as coaches, I'm out here doing it for just the wins, I wouldn't last very long
Mm.
in this game. I love to compete. I love the competition. I love to be around strong, smart, resilient young women. I love to see what they do in their lives once they, soccer is not a part of their life anymore. I talk about the value of people, not just as an athlete, but these other great things they do in our community with, giving back and what they bring in leadership to the university. So for me, if it was just about, the game itself, I don't think I'd be here.
Mhm.
In fact, I know I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. What changes would you like to see in the game? I mean, like for example, you have a really compressed fall schedule, and then in the spring they may have 4 or 5 scrimmage like competitions and all that. But would you like to see the schedule moved out to the whole school year, and so it's not so crazy during those 3 months, and when the kids, some of the freshmen are just adjusting to the first experience in college, and all of a sudden, they're playing 2 games a week, they're traveling. Would you like to see that changed?
Selfishly, maybe just because I like hands-on. I like to know what they're doing all the time, but I don't think that would be good for the Division III philosophy. There's already been some really positive movement, right? Meaning our spring has now been extended. We've been given double the amount of days we're allowed to be working with them. So we start back up next week.
Hmm.
Whereas before we had X amount of weeks to get X amount of days in, and that was that. And if you didn't get it in, you didn't get it in. Where they were trying to keep that philosophy of the Division III athlete with the balance. So they've kind of already moved in a direction of a little bit more time with them. I think that's a positive. I'm excited about it. This is the first year it's happened, so I'll see how that goes. We in Division III only get one play date. I think these kids they don't just want to be practicing for 3 months. They'd like so I would like to see maybe an opportunity for another, maybe 2 or 3 days of competition in the spring. But to answer your question, it is the Division III philosophy. This is why a lot of these athletes choose it. They want the balance. They want to use the spring to do internships, to travel abroad, or vice versa. If they're, a lacrosse player, they have their fall to get adjusted to engage in other areas to make them the complete student athlete, which is kind of the premise of Division III. Where at Division I, right, it was all encompassing. That's why I went there. I wanted to do nothing but soccer. But this is a healthy alternative to those kids who, have played their whole lives. They still are, they compete, they love it, but they have other goals and ambitions, and now they're able to do all of it, right?
Are you still involved in the club scene at all? I know for a while you coach. You also had your own club for a while. Are you still doing a little bit of that?
Um, I Yes and no. I got out of it last year.
Mhm.
I think I kind of mentioned earlier, there was a little bit of a shift during that COVID time where people were out of sorts a bit. I think we're coming back to where things are calming down. Maybe I'll get back into it. Right now, I'm enjoying being able to put all my energies into the college program. I recently got married. I took the leap, Julian. And
Lucky guy.
so, when I was on the club scene last year, I mean, I was gone. I was gone every weekend, club practicing 3 times a week, college practice like I was just, and that was fine. My now husband is not going for that. So I took a little leave, see how it goes this year. I might get back into it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Last question, listen, and this has been great. I should call you coach, but I know you so well. It's hard for me to do. I hope that hasn't offended you. But when you get older and you think about retirement, Do you think you'll always have soccer in your life to some degree, even when you're not maybe doing it, 4 or 5 days a week anymore, or every day now? Do you think you'll always be involved in the game?
Yeah, I think so. I think most of my players are going to have kids and they're going to get into soccer and I'm going to be watching them play or I mean, I'd hope so. I mean, to your point, right? You love following, the high school basketball scene.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's fun.
it's
It's
fun.
fun just even if you don't have anybody involved, right? That
Yeah,
just going to just seeing the competition, feeling that sports gives us you know these outlets to relive what the golden our olden days and to just feel that vibrance in the gyms and it's great. So I mean, I think I'll always be a sports fan, whether that's basketball, soccer, and I hope I'll always just keep up with it and we'll see.
yeah. Well, look, Liz, this has been great. You've really had an amazing career as a player and coach. You've done so much, and your kids, your players are lucky they have you. The parents are lucky that you coach their kids, and you've always been a good resource for me. I'd call you up with questions about my own son's development. So you've always helped your friends. So I'm just, I'm proud to be your friend, and I'm just so happy for you. I hope you have continued success. And what's your nickname, Shenandoah? What's the
The Hornets.
hope the Hornets, have that great season in the fall, and you can take these girls and reach all your goals.
Oh, Julian, that was so sweet of you. Look at
Mhm.
you saying nice things to me.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you have continued success. These podcasts are great. I've
Oh,
watched a
thank you.
bunch of them. Try to reach out to you afterwards and tell you how much I enjoy them when I see them. So you're doing a
Thank you.
great thing. Yeah, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see.
Well, we're neighbors now, so I definitely will come check out your games. Let's get in touch. Let's keep in touch and maybe
Yeah,
get lunch one of these days.
sounds good. I'll take you
Okay.
up on that.
All right. It'll be great, Liz. Well,
All
Liz,
right,
again, thanks again. This is great.
you got it. Take
All right.
care.
You too. Have
All
a great
right,
day. Bye bye.
bye-bye.